Welcome everybody to the Now Morning Show. We are going to talk about the mid-year budget review, which was talked about by the Minister of Finance, Colm Imbert, yesterday in the House of Representatives. The voice of the youth is always important to have conversations like these. I have with me this morning Nikolai Edwards, who is a youth advocate, and Mr. Adam Raful, who is on the policy committee at the Heliconia Foundation. Gentlemen, good morning and welcome.
Good morning.
Nikolai, I want to start off with you this morning. So the minister would have made some arguments for his government yesterday as to their plans moving forward, and he would have recapped what had happened. What are your general thoughts on what he said?
Now, I think that at this point, after 3+ years of a government being in place, it is expected that you would see growth. So for one, I'm not here to dispute the statistics of the minister. I think that things have been put in place to stabilize the country. However, just as any other citizen, I believe right now, the question is, where is the trickle down? Why aren't we feeling this on the ground? And I think that is the biggest issue. And if you have to instill trust in a government, you have to be able to see tangible benefits or tangible returns, especially if we're all banning our bellies. So I think that is the biggest concern for me.
So you want the people on the ground to feel it more. Adam, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think we have to understand, you have to judge someone based on the situation they're in, right? 2015 was a difficult situation. 2016 was a difficult situation in terms of the energy prices falling. And also on top of that, besides energy prices falling, production decreased, right? So there's a couple of takeaways from the budget. First and foremost, the IMF, the World Bank, the CSO, the Central Bank, all of them are saying that we're seeing economic growth. It has not reached the average business yet, but that's a good sign. We've survived the recession, right? That's our first point. The second point is natural gas production is up. Despite what we heard about BP, natural gas production is up, and that's a very positive sign. Oil production is expected to increase. And what was interesting too, despite all the US dollar shortages, we're actually exporting about $3 billion more US dollars worth of goods than we're importing. It was about 8 billion, a little over 8 billion US dollars in exports, and only about 5 billion in imports. So the question is, why do we have this US dollar shortage? And I hope it's not because of capital fire. I hope it's not because there are some Chinese who are betting against the currency, because that's not the patriotic thing to do. And we're all in this together, and this is our country. We should try and make it the best place we can make it.
But on the concern that Nikolai raised about the man on the street not being able to get any tangible benefits from what is being presented, how do we get to that point? This time the minister didn't announce any new taxes, which is good for the public.
Of course, and I think you might get some sweeteners maybe in the actual budget. This is just a mid-year review, which is supposed to be to review what happened in the last 6 months. So hopefully, I'm hoping that we might see a minimum wage increase towards the end of the year. I'm hoping we may see an annual taxable allowance towards the end of the year increase. But we are seeing that he did talk about some projects that will help the average person. New hospitals that are still under construction. There's new highway projects or completion of highway projects, which is going to help the traffic situation. So there are tangible things. There is an industrial park they're talking about. There is
so you see some benefits coming out from that.
Well, hopefully that will result in more jobs for young people like ourselves. And I think what we're looking at too, the housing bonds, which is good news for us because housing is so unaffordable in Trinidad and Tobago. When you compare the median housing price compared to the median salary. Yeah. So I'm happy that at least we could start seeing maybe more supply of houses.
Yeah, and you mentioned jobs, and Nikolai, the minister did announce that about $39.3 million will be given to the Ministry of Labour for the OJT program. How do you see the Ministry of Labour using that money under this program to actually benefit people? Because yes, we talk about employment and people talk about not being able to get jobs, but then we also have the issue of underemployment where you have all of these people with all of these qualifications not being able to get jobs?
So, well, as it stands right now, I don't see OJT transforming necessarily to meet the current demands of the country, insofar as persons are not looking to these traditional jobs. People want jobs based in technology. We want to see jobs that are not the regular 8 to 4, 9 to 5 situation, because that is where the country is heading. Whether or not the government chooses to acknowledge it or not, we have to take a different approach in terms of this generation moving forward into the job market. Because as it stands right now, when you even think about coming into Port of Spain, and as a person from South myself, knowing the traffic woes that people have to go through coming into Port of Spain on a morning, why don't we consider staggering work hours? Why don't we have some flexi time, some work from home situations? Because the average person can be in control of their own situation now. So for instance, we have these ride sharing and all these different things. So employers need to not only attract the best talent, but retain the best talent. So the focus is not simply on the customer or the client alone, but you have to think about your employees as well. So,
and Adam, you agreeing with what he's saying?
I agree with what Nikolai is saying, and I think while there are different business grants, the I2I, there's planting seeds and so on, we need to attract our young people to create the new set of businesses, right? We can't look at just you get a university degree and then you're looking now to get a job in the public sector. No, it has to be, we have to create our own opportunities. What's interesting, there was a central bank report saying that our manufacturers are still not reaching their capacity, their productive capacity. That came out, I think, on Monday in the Express. And how we could solve that is by more trade missions. Not only looking at CARICOM market, but also looking at the Central American market, looking at Dominican Republic, and let's try and export more, let's try and create more opportunities, let's target our diaspora, and let's create new innovative products that we could be globally competitive in.
When you talk about exports, there was a conversation yesterday with the energy sector. What is happening in Venezuela? They may need our resources, human power in Guyana, that we can look to export our labor as well.
Yes.
How do you see that working for Trinidad and Tobago?
That is something that I think we have to go toward because there will never be enough jobs in Trinidad and Tobago. And we have highly qualified individuals in this country who can't seem to find a place here. But even when it comes down to persons getting scholarships and seeking to study abroad, there seems to be a big question mark over that, whether or not that is a viable route for an average young person, because you're being told that the ministry is not willing, the Ministry of Education that is not willing to fund certain programs outside of the country. But we need to be giving our young people, our citizens, the exposure, the international exposure. So you can't just pick up people who are now of working age or working capacity and then drop them into another country. We need to start easing those things in. And even this ties even back into our ability to travel around the region or travel outside of Trinidad and Tobago. And that proves difficult at times when we think about the airport taxes and all of these things. So little by little, in increments, we need to be exposing the population to what exists outside of Trinidad and Tobago, if not only for the benefit of going out there, getting the experience and coming back and developing this country.
I fully agree with this point. And I think that's the role of UE and UTT to create student exchange programs so people could study abroad. And it's working with our diplomatic partners to ensure that, they have trips that our young people could take that to go to the US, to go to Canada, to go to Europe, to go to around the world to get ideas, because ideas is the currency. That's what takes a nation forward.
Adam, so the big question yesterday was this a presentation geared towards an election? What are your thoughts?
I can't really say there was a lot of sweeteners. I think it's basically a continuation of the government's program over the last 4 or 5 years, which is stabilization of the economy.
I think that it was, in fact, a presentation geared toward election because you're going to be seeing, and this is one of my grievances, especially as a young person. You have governments coming in, governments going out, regardless of which party they represent. And they're dangling certain amenities, utilities above the population, and it's not right. There should be no government who can say to you, well, if you vote for me, we're going to pave your roads, or we're going to do this, or build hospitals. So that is the role and function of the government, to put certain systems in place where every person, the human endeavor that can succeed in an environment such as this. So I am not convinced that the government is simply over the past couple of years has been just stabilizing the country, but putting away and preparing for this moment. It is the characteristic of a government in Trinidad and Tobago thinking in 5-year cycles.
And well, we will continue this conversation during this week. Thank you very much, Mr. Nikolai Edwards, Youth Advocate, and Adam Raful, Policy Committee, Heliconia Foundation, for coming on this morning and chatting with us. It was a good conversation, and as I said, we will be continuing these conversations with the millennials for the rest of this week. For now, though, we take a break.